everybody knows that the bird is a winner, winner, bird, bird, the bird is a winner, winner. When everybody's heard about the bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird, bird, the bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 the bird's a winner, winner, bird.
Hey, hey, hey. Did you play that song for me?
I did. I played that song for you as well. Wow. Why is it never like just push a button and it happens?
I don't know. That was very frustrating. I'm sorry that happened to you.
I'm sorry that happened to all the people viewing. You keep them occupied. I'm going to alert the troops that we've managed to fix YouTube. This was not a Perfect Liars Club issue. This was a system-wide global breakdown.
Twitter was freaking out. Which is on topic because the show is all about birds. And what do birds do? They Twitter. Speaking of birds, I made my first voyage out of the house today since not out of the house, but the first time I went into a retail establishment since March 13th. And I went to the Tractor Supply Company where I've never been before. And it was a little bit of culture shock anyway, because there are live animals in there and also jeans and also heavy equipment. It's like a weird mix of stuff. But I was there to buy bird supplies because, as anyone who follows me on Facebook knows, I'm now completely obsessed with birds. It's all I talk about and all I think about. And so I went to buy more supplies to attract different kinds of birds, because now that I've identified all the ones that come to my bird feeder, I need to start adding some novelty to my life, because that's really important for animals, that we experience novelty. I'm talking about myself here. And so I got there and I got up to the counter with my 2 shepherd hooks, 2 bags of bird seed, suet cakes, a suet feeder, a finch sock, and something else. And I did not have my credit card.
Did you say a finch saw?
Yeah, sock, a finch sock. Oh, are you curious about why that is, Fierce? It's because finches are very beautiful and they are very interested in eating thistle seed or Niger seed. And they like to eat it through little tiny holes. They like to poke their little cute beaks in there and take it. And so it's like a mesh tube that the finches like to eat, because I have a lot of purple finch, which are disappointingly actually red, although they're cute. But what I really want, what the birders, all the birders want to see, is goldfinch. And I think with my finch feeder, it's going to happen. I do have a red-bellied woodpecker who comes every day now, and I got him his own suet cake, so I hope he comes back with his friends. I also have titmouses, which is just fun to say. Avery was horrified that there's something called a titmouse, and I asked her what she would draw if I just asked her to draw me a titmouse and didn't tell her it was a bird. And the look on her face was so complicated and amazing that I'm really disappointed with myself that I didn't videotape it. It was hot. I hope you see more goldfinches than people saw that Goldfinch movie that came out a couple months ago. It's a shame, because it was a good book, a real good book.
Well, that's what happens when you try to turn a great book into a film.
It's true.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. I know, Cara, I'm a little fascinated. 2 weeks ago on this program, we had a good repast about how you could barely identify a robin redbreast. Right. And now you're looking at titmouses and finches and you're freaking, a member of the Audubon Society.
I have an app. Yes, I do. I was pointing out to my mother the difference between chickadees, titmouses, and blue jays the other day. Someone who knows.
My little chickadee.
Yeah, they're so cute. Now, I will say, actually, we went from, that I couldn't identify a robin accurately, but before that, I actually have a minor phobia of birds. Not so much the birds themselves, but the idea of their scaly little dinosaur feet getting tangled in my hair has always been something that really horrifies me. So my bird reaction used to be, if they came near me, I would scream and flap my hands and run away. I've upended tables on patios because birds get too close to me. So it's really been, the quarantine has changed me. It's made me a new person. I'm so much braver now. And also I don't understand how the birds have been here all along and they've been so cute and interesting and I never knew. Is the world full of things like that? Is it?
The world is a beautiful place, Cara, if you just take a moment to see. You know, I have to get in on some animal spotting action since everybody's talking about animals at this episode. Right before the show, I went for my run, as I am wont to do. And in the span of my 6-mile run, I saw a woodpecker, but the woodpecker was not on the tree outside my window like he normally is. He was in the alley pecking at a space between bricks, which I found fascinating. There must be something really, really good in the alley.
Mortar?
I don't know. You're the expert. You tell me. Then I made it down to just shy of the P Street walking path on Rock Creek Park in DC, where many people, if you go at a certain time of day, you'll spot great blue herons.
Oh, really?
And they all hang out down there. In fact, fellow storyteller and playwright Derek Hills posted on Instagram yesterday a series of photos capturing what I see just about every day on my run. And then as I traversed further down towards the Kennedy Center, I saw a great blue heron in flight, and I kid you not, it looked like a pterodactyl flying over a very empty Rock Creek Parkway. But the wildlife spotting didn't end there. I get to Kennedy Center, I've got the Potomac on my right-hand side, and a giant fish, I think it was a fish, jumped out of the water and did like, it was like Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom opening sequence, like flipped in the air and then splashed back in the water.
All that and dolphins in the canals of Venice.
So I think it was a sign. I think it was a sign that we picked a great topic to talk about wildlife in tonight's show. And YouTube be damned. We're up and running. We've got some great guests in store for you. And,
we do.
I don't know. Where do we go from here, Cara?
Well, we have one question already from the chat. Victoria is asking, and I have the same question. I was just waiting for my chance. Is your Bad Seed shirt also bird related?
You know, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, you should.
But honestly, no, I didn't think of it. But maybe I did subconsciously.
Yeah, maybe you did. Synergy, you know, it's all coming together.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you to that question, all the way from Aiken, South Carolina.
Okay, should we bring our guest on?
We should. Should I do the fancy intro slides that I prepared?
Yes, you should.
While you
who's first?
Talk them up?
Intro slide. Okay, so we were a little bit mysterious about our guest today. Many of you who are joining us on the, whatever this is, the vlog cast, I don't know what it is, I already know Molly Woods Murchie. She's been an improviser in DC for a long time. She tells super funny stories along with her husband, Colin. I should have cleared this with Molly, but you know, her and Colin are my internet best friends, although we've only ever met in public a few times. We have a very deep relationship on Facebook, and Molly's hilarious. And she also coined the term mild life to describe her relationship with the animals in her backyard, which is what she's here to talk about tonight. She's going to tell us about all the things she's doing with them and to them, and it's going to be great. So we have a slide for Molly Pierce, or Molly herself.
We have a series of slides, if I can get to them.
Look, that's Molly's backyard.
Oh, I hear. Why don't we just bring Molly on? She can talk us through. There's this crazy setup of I believe what is that, a squirrel or chipmunk eating
That's a chipmunk.
Hi, welcome, Molly. That's a chipmunk.
That is a chipmunk. Oh yeah, that's a chipmunk in my backyard a few days ago, confronting a grape on a little miniature picnic table that my friend Marjorie built for me.
I love that miniature picnic table so much.
She built one for herself, and I said I loved it so much I wanted to cry, and she built me one, and she sent it in parts, and she made fake IKEA assembly instructions. It is the greatest gift I have ever received.
I find it fascinating. First off, that's awesome. Also, I find it incredibly fascinating that everybody except me can be incredibly creative during this period of time.
Yeah, this is as good as I get. Oh, and that's yeah, here's some of our assorted mild life. You see the chipmunk on the kind of brick thing. That was my old setup from a couple years ago. When I first started doing this, I noticed that we had chipmunks in the backyard, and my husband said, you know, I bet you could train those, and my eyes just lit up. And it's been a pursuit ever since. And so I set out food for them there. And then we've got these deer are from our front yard. Last Saturday, we were getting ready to leave the house and go on a walk, but we were delayed because there were deer, 3 of them, in our front yard, just being incredibly chill and eating shrubs and whatnot. And the other pictures, the night vision things of the possum and the raccoon parties going on, that is from our first foray into wildlife photography. About 10 years ago, we had a dog that ran away. And if you've ever lost a pet in DC, like, people come out of the woodwork to offer all of these bizarre tips, tricks, services. And one of the things that they said to do was get a trail camera that can take night pictures and set out some dog food, and you can see if your dog is actually secretly hanging around your house. And she wasn't, but we found out that we had lots of raccoons, possums. One of the pictures was that we got was a raccoon and a cat having a bit of a stare down over some food. Nobody was injured, but they did encounter each other. So that was how we.
I was just saying, we should point out to the viewers at home that, you know, this is you live in Washington, D.C. proper, the city of Washington, D.C. It's not like you live out in the country.
No, I live in Washington, D.C. proper, the Northwest D.C. We have neighbors and cars and all that kind of stuff. And this is, yeah, we're kind of close to Rock Creek Park and Little Forest, but we're not like in it. And then the night vision, the dog getting lost pictures, that's from Mount Rainier, Maryland, which is just across the line from DC and Northeast, like off Route 1, Rhode Island Avenue up there. So yeah, that was urban as well.
Did you get the dog back?
Oh God, Cara. Eventually she was gone. She was on the run for, I think, about a month. We hired a professional tracker and a trapper and spent several $100s on it. We had her home. She did not want to be a pet. She was feral. We had her for about 5 months, and then she ran away again, did the same thing, and that did not have a happy ending, I'm afraid.
Oh,
yeah. But
I thought you were going to say you hired a private investigator, which made me very, very intrigued. Not that I wasn't.
She was a shifty dog. She had lots of secrets. No, but we had like the tracker brought out her sniffer dogs, and like we went and traced the trail to figure out where we should place the wildlife cameras, and we had wildlife traps, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I'm in the market for a wildlife camera so that I can see my birds when I'm not there.
Yeah.
But, and also, let's bring Meredith on. She would love to talk about tracking dogs, and she has a feral dog herself that she can tell us about.
Yay.
So our secret guest that we've been so cagey about is my good friend Meredith, whom I met in a bar many years ago. And she is an animal conservation expert, and she has known all the people in the Joe Exotic Tiger King world forever. She's been telling me about them for years, and I can't wait to ask her questions and explain what the show is to Molly, who's never seen it. Welcome, Meredith.
Hey, Cara. I still can't believe that Molly hasn't seen this yet.
I know.
I have 2 children. I have to do homeschool, so I don't get to do anything extra.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, Meredith. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Guy.
Meredith, why don't you tell us what you think about feral dogs? Why don't you tell us about your dog? Is Tread there with you?
You can actually see him right here over my shoulder. You can see how vicious he is.
Mhm.
He's brain damaged and he's not an actual dog breed. So it's fine. It's
He's not
fine.
an actual dog, really?
He's not, there's no like dog breed that he is. I did the DNA test and they were like, no. In fact, they called me and they're like, where did you get that? So, but it's
Really?
fine. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Are you sure it's a dog?
Pretty sure. It might be a coyote. He's a village dog or a pariah dog. So there's like billions of dogs in the world that have never been owned and their ancestors have never been owned. And they're pretty much like the dogs that came out of the forest to live on the trash piles next to people tens of thousands of years ago. He's one of those.
We think our dog is kind of is part that. We just call him a brown dog.
That's what, when people ask me what kind of dog I have, that's my response, is that he's brown.
That's what I say. Oh my God.
We used to say we had a West Virginia porch sitter, but he wasn't. I mean, I'm sure if we had gotten his DNA tested, which we didn't because we're not that bougie, they would have come up with with some sort of idea about what breed he was. I don't understand how your dog cannot have any breed.
He's just Mach 1, Mod 1 dog. It's fine. He doesn't like, people or other dogs or noises or when women laugh, but it's all fine.
What does he do when women laugh?
He growls at them. When you were doing my intro, he was growling in his sleep.
Maybe it's just Cara.
Maybe it's just me.
Don't laugh too loud, I'll hear you.
Wow.
I'm sorry. So, Meredith, have you ever clicker trained an animal? Let's start there.
Okay, I'm not making this up. I took a class on clicker training chickens.
Oh, come on, you're making that up.
If you can clicker train a chicken, you can clicker train anything. And I can clicker train chickens. The dog is basically untrained though, so I don't know what went wrong, but it's fine.
Where were you clicker training chickens?
I worked at a zoo. And
but you were a herpetologist. Were you feeding the chickens to the snakes?
well, there was a big training initiative that everyone was going to train all their animals. I was working on training some crocodiles so that I could get them to come up, well, not both of them, just the male, to come up on the beach so I could manually ejaculate him for breeding.
Good night.
I was unsuccessful in getting him to come up on the beach, so.
And getting him to
Literally and figuratively. Hey-oh. I love Molly's expression through all of this.
I am horrified by that, but also like one of my greatest phobias is alligators and crocodiles. So I'm just upset
my
about
gosh.
this.
Here's a Molly and Meredith connection. Molly got married at the Baltimore Zoo, and that's where Meredith was a herpetologist.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I got married at the Baltimore Zoo in 2007.
I was still working there in 2007.
We had penguins. We had a penguin named Ascot come to our reception. They offered us a corn snake, and I said no, thank you.
You missed out having me at your wedding on
Oh,
Sunday. No, it wouldn't have been me.
Would you have manually ejaculated an alligator for her at her wedding?
If only I had been successful in training it, maybe. But I failed.
Is that where you were working when you were clicker training the chicken?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Here's what I got you for your wedding.
This was when Meredith was at the zoo. It was the early days of our friendship, but we got a behind the scenes tour, which was amazing. I believe I got to hold a penguin, although I may be misremembering that, but I definitely fed a giraffe and an elephant, and it was awesome. And we got to go into like the trailer where the people work. And I learned that Meredith was on the, what do you call it? The team that's supposed to respond if there's an escaped wild animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to do like
yeah, they figured that because they worked with, because the sad fact is that if zoo animals escape and they're dangerous animals, sometimes you have to shoot them. It's not anything that anybody ever wants to do, but you have to be trained for it just in case, you know, if human life is in danger. And I was on that team, and they wanted me on that team because they figured that since I worked with all the reptiles, I wouldn't mind killing something.
You think you're cold-hearted because your animals are cold-blooded?
I guess, yeah.
There's something in your file.
I went on that.
We know that she's got issues. Give her the gun.
So
I got to go on a tour at the National Zoo once, and we were behind the scenes at the, I think it was the Andean Bears enclosure. And on top of the refrigerator, they had honey. And then they had another larger container of honey that was labeled emergency honey, do not use. And they explained to us that it was like the honey that you only use if the bear escapes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's some good honey.
must be
Well,
great.
speaking of bear escapes, as those of you who have been watching our show since last week know, I am currently reporting from Zanesville, Ohio. And does anyone remember what bears and escapees and shooting in Zanesville, Ohio have in common?
The DC Eagle?
The DC Eagle.
Never mind. Move on. That was a joke. Go on. It didn't land.
Bears and cubs. I get it. Yeah. And shooting. I don't get that part though. This is where that crazy person owned all those tigers and lions and ligers and whatever, and let them out and killed himself. And there were all these people calling 911 in this small Midwestern town in the middle of Ohio and saying, I think I just saw a tiger on Route 70. And they ended up having Jack Hanna, who was like the hero of my childhood from the Columbus Zoo, and he was always on the David Letterman show. He had to come and shoot all the tigers and lions.
Okay, Jack Hanna didn't shoot anything.
Molly and I were talking about Jack Hanna in the green room before the show started. Yeah, fascinating.
How much David Letterman hated it when he came on the show.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He did too shoot them, Meredith.
Jack Hanna didn't. The police did. I don't think anyone would give Jack Hanna a gun if they're in the right mind.
He always had the party stuff on.
The police shot them, and now a lot of the officers still have PTSD as a result.
I bet. Man, that's not being trained for at the Muskingum County Police Academy.
Yeah, like, oh, you need to go shoot these 18 tigers and 10 bears and a monkey.
Yeah, and it was something horrible. Like the tigers were like 10% of the whole population of tigers in the world or something, because there are so few of these kinds of tigers. Okay, that's bad math, but it's something like that, Meredith.
So here's the thing, and everyone should know this from watching Tiger King, except for Molly, is that there are maybe as many as 5,000 tigers in the US, and that's not counting zoos, like accredited zoos, like the Baltimore Zoo, like good, real zoos. This is in backyards and in roadside zoos like Joe Exotic had. There's about maybe 5,000, which is more than there are in the wild.
I know that from watching Tiger King.
See, there you go.
Why don't we, I mean, that's a fascinating figure, but I think for Molly's benefit and for the people watching and as a good foray into questions, the questions about Tiger King are starting to pour in. Why don't we set up for the people who have not seen it, don't know what we're talking about, of living under a rock for the past 2 months. Meredith.
Molly. First let's ask Molly what she thinks she knows about it.
Okay.
Molly, what do you think Tiger King is about?
Joe Exotic has a bad zoo, a non-accredited, like, come and take your pictures with exotic animals zoo. And he has I think he's gay. I think he has either an employee or a friend or something that's named Carol Baskin, and she is involved in this bad zoo somehow. And she had some animals and killed her husband by feeding them to these animals, but no one can prove it. Did I do a good job?
Is that all?
And then I don't know. There's something like a three-way marriage. There's somebody who's like married to like multiple people. That's all I got.
Okay. Well,
that's pretty good.
Oh,
that's pretty good.
So Carol actually runs a real sanctuary in Florida and has been working for years to close places.
I knew there was a Florida connection. Okay,
Carol's
there
in
we
Florida.
go.
And she's been working for years to close places like Joe's Place.
Okay.
And so he hired someone to murder her. Well, twice he hired someone to murder her. The first guy didn't, like, he was just kind of a slacker and he didn't do it. The second guy was an FBI agent.
Did they miss and accidentally murder her husband?
No, her husband disappeared in the 90s, and Joe has been putting forward this theory for years that Carol was the one who murdered him.
Okay.
And fed him to her cats.
But if she is, okay, so her sanctuary is legit and she takes care of the animals.
Her sanctuary is legit and she does take care of the animals, yeah.
Despite the fact it's in Florida.
Right?
Yeah.
Meredith, do you want to restate that? Because I know that's your main messaging point about Tiger King that you want to get out there. Is that Carol Baskin?
Fucking Carol Baskin is actually an amazing woman who does amazing work for animal welfare and has dedicated her entire, well, all right, not her entire life, because she did start out as someone who bought animals and was breeding them and doing all the same stuff these guys were doing. And then she saw the light and she realized it was a really super bad idea. And since then she doesn't breed, buy, sell, or trade animals. All of her animals stay at her facility for life. She takes very good care of them. She has a vet on staff. Yeah. And she is one of the people spearheading the initiative to make what Joe does illegal. So if anyone's going to ask me about Carol Baskin, that just know that Carol and I are actually friends. So, yeah.
What does she think of the imitation of her on Saturday Night Live? Has she mentioned that?
No, I haven't. I haven't asked her about that, but she has a really good sense of humor. She probably laughed quite a bit. She was conned recently into she thought appearing on Jimmy Fallon. It was like two British guys who were pranksters who made her think that she was going to be on Jimmy Fallon, and they interviewed her. It's the first interview she's done. And she was like, "Oh, that was really funny. Good job." So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's mean. I'd be so sad if I thought I was on Jimmy Fallon and I was being prankster.
No, I would be pretty sad too.
Side note, I've never liked prank humor.
Me neither.
Not a fan. It's mean. It's mean. Nobody needs that. I had a question though. I may have misread this or misheard this, or I could be delusional because when this show came out, it was like 7 years ago, it feels like. Wasn't the original intent of the directors of this documentary to basically expose the tiger cub trade and the breeding practices? And when they got in, they went a different direction because of the eccentricities and the characters and the juicy tabloid nature of all of this.
Yeah.
So the original intent was like a Blackfin, or we were going to tell a story that's going to rally people around these practices. And it became more of a weird pandemic soap opera on crack distraction.
So there's some really interesting questions about that. So when Eric Good is one of the producers and directors, he's kind of the person who started it. Rebecca Chilkin is also a director, but I feel like Eric is mostly the one behind the whole thing. So Eric has said that he was intending to have a conservation message, but at the same time, so because I worked in reptile stuff for so long, I know all these crazy reptile people, and they're just as crazy, if not more crazy than the big cat people. And I was at a turtle conference, like you do, and I was talking to this guy who's like, "Oh yeah, my friend Eric Good is," because Eric Good is also a turtle person. He's making this documentary about these crazy cat people you would never believe. They're totally insane. Like, there's this lady in Florida that murdered her husband, and he's doing a whole bit about her and how she murdered her husband and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, that's not right, you guys. Like, you can't paint, because he also mentioned that it was about Joe, and I'm like, well, you can't paint Joe and Carol with the same brush. They're very different. It's a completely different thing. And he's like, oh no, they're all the same. She's just as crazy. He told me. So I actually went to Carol like in probably 2018, and I said, hey Carol, I don't know if you're working with this guy Eric Good or not, because when you're making a documentary like this, you don't talk about it. You have to keep everything on the DL so that it doesn't wreck the story. So she couldn't really tell me whether or not she was working with him. So I said, I don't know if you're working with him or not, but here's what I heard. and maybe you should be careful. And she was like, oh, I don't know. And of course, it comes out later that he had been telling her the whole time, we are making the blackfish of tigers, and we're going to stop the trade, and we're going to stop the exploitation. And he went to her place like 8 times and filmed with them for hours. And I just don't think it was an accident that, because he now is saying, well, Netflix kind of took over artistic control of the film. And maybe that's true. But I don't think it's an accident that he just happened to interview all these people about her husband. And I was hearing 2 years before that he was going to talk about her murdering her husband. And then suddenly it was Netflix that did it. I don't know.
So he really does think she murdered her husband. Or at least he alleged, I mean, he pretends to think.
I can't say what Eric believes. What I can say is that Eric definitely has an eye for the ridiculous, and he has a lot of connections to the underworld. So that clip at the beginning where he was like, yeah, I was at this reptile store in Florida, and there was this guy with a leopard in the back of his car, and I thought, well, that's crazy. I wonder what's going on with that. So the pet store, that's the reptile pet store that he was at, is run by a guy who is a known reptile smuggler who was served time in jail for it. And
Yeah,
Eric's like,
Cuban?
"What?"
The guy with like the Miami compound, right?
That was Mario Trabawi. That's a different guy.
Oh.
No, so he doesn't talk about the guy that owns the reptile pet store at the beginning where the van with the cat is. That guy his name is Tom. I'll just leave it at that. But there's a book, if anyone's interested, called The Lizard King. And Tom is one of the main characters in that book. And that's his store that Eric was at when he saw this cat. So
what kind of reptiles do people smuggle?
What's that?
What kind of reptiles do people smuggle?
Anything endangered, or if it's, so there's a convention on international trade in endangered species that lists animals and says, okay, well, you have to have permits to do these. You don't have to permits to do these. So if you need a permit, if you can smuggle it, it's a lot cheaper and easier, and people will pay top dollar for things.
First off, I want to check in with Molly. Molly, how are you?
Okay. What? Who are these people? Why?
There are also a really unusually high number of amputees in this show, including one person whose arm was bitten off by a tiger at the Joe Exotic Zoo. And that's like, the show is so crazy that this person's arm being bitten off is like a 2-minute part of one episode.
Yeah,
it should have been what?
I was gonna say, I didn't even notice it at first.
What, the missing arm or the scene?
I do. I mean, to go down this rabbit hole, I was fascinated, and I don't know if this was a trick of editing, that they being Joe Exotic and his partners showed up in the hospital with paperwork for her to sign. And I guess, so that they wouldn't be at fault for it. I don't know. They kind of really glazed over it, but I believe in interviews now, the woman still is a staunch supporter of Joe.
Saf is a man.
Oh.
So this is another thing that they did in the docuseries. So Saf, the person whose arm was ripped off by a tiger, Saf is a trans man, and everyone, even in Oklahoma, who knows Saf and talks about Saf, has always referred to Saf as a man. That's how Saf refers to himself. But Erica and Rebecca, for some reason in this docuseries, chose to misgender Saf as a woman for the entire thing.
Yeah, as a commenter just pointed out on the chat. So I stand corrected. Apologies.
Well, you didn't know.
It's
okay. You didn't know.
But my big question is, and Meredith, I don't know if you can answer this, and I think it's kind of what Molly was alluding to earlier. What is the psychology around this attraction to purchasing wild game or owning wild game, or like, I like many people who watch this show, I was titillated by the silliness and the craziness and exotic characters, but at the baseline level, I don't understand the allure of coming home to a giant snake or an alligator or a white lion.
Or a tiger that costs like, $10,000 a year to feed and could kill you at any moment. There's actually, so there's a couple different kinds of people that do this. One of them is the kind of person who starts out as a regular hobbyist and then just kind of starts getting into more and more difficult animals to keep. And it's more like a technological obsession with them, I think. Especially with the herp crowd. I think that's a big thing. And then there's
not people that have herpes, right?
Oh, right. Sorry, reptile and amphibians.
Yeah.
Herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians.
Because a lot of people who have herpes are not animal hoarders. We don't want to malign them.
We should not talk bad.
I haven't seen the data on that. We'll look for a report.
But then there's also the people who want to be really cool and different, and just having a normal cat or dog is not good enough. They want to stand out. They want to be special. So
you've also talked about how there's like a herp type of animal person, a big cat type of animal person, a primate type of animal person. Can you break down those stereotypes for us? Because the monkey people.
Well, this is from the zoo world. So like, there's your herp keepers who usually have all the tattoos and the funny hair, and then there's your bird keepers who are like maybe the people that are most likely to like show up at work with a gun and kill everybody.
What?
They're crazy.
Bird keepers are weird. And then there's the mammal keepers who were probably all cheerleaders in high school and had beautiful long hair. But that may be a stereotype.
Wait, what? This sounds specious to me. Like these are amazing
this is a scientific study that I did in my own head.
So this isn't documented.
No. I mean, yes, it's all science.
It's all science. We have a couple questions about Doc Ansel as well. From Kit, question, have you ever met Doc Ansel, and is he as gross in real life as he is on the show?
Who is that?
Oh, so there's a guy. So this is like, just so you know, this is like Voldemort. We don't say the name.
Oh.
So there's a guy in Myrtle Beach who has a facility because he sues people like nobody's business.
Oh, okay.
There's a guy in Myrtle Beach who owns a facility where he breeds like ligers and all these different weird color, like creamsicle. Here's my creamsicle tiger. Here's my all white tiger. And he does shows and he does all the bad stuff, but then he also has like a harem of women, has been accused of running a cult, which I totally believe.
He renames them, all the women, he makes them take new names.
There was a woman on the show who talked about living there for a while, and she said that they really wanted her to get a boob job, and she did it just so they would finally let her sleep. Molly, you need to watch this.
Apparently. Oh my God, what am I doing with my time?
And once again, it's such a small part of the overall story. You know what I mean? It's such a tiny little part.
I do not need to play Animal Crossing. I'm going to put that aside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Why are we talking about Bleach? What was the question?
What
was the, have I met him? No, I have not. So a lot of these people I have not met in person. I've tracked them for years. I have not followed them around on the street, like online. I've followed them. But most of them, which is why Tiger King was so fun for me. For some of these people, it was the first time I'd ever seen them, which is why when Stop came on, I was very confused because I'm like, that looks like a woman. Stop is a man. What's happening here? But yes, so I have not, but I know people who have met him and been to his place and have some interesting, like I know someone who showed up at his place and was like getting a little tour. He said, when he drove in, there was a tiger chained on the front lawn of the house. And then he came inside and there was just his living room was empty except for the sex swings, which is kind of weird.
More than one sex swing.
Well, when you have more than one girlfriend at a time, you need more.
Oh, I thought they were for the tigers.
Oh God.
No, that's Joe. What?
We had a question from someone about the future of white tigers in the wild. Let me see if I understand it. What's the future of white tigers in the wild if all the U.S. domestic tigers disappear in time?
Well, there are, so there's like one case of a white tiger occurring in the wild in the last 20 years that I'm aware of, and we don't think it survived. So all the white tigers in the US derive from one animal named Mohan, who was a gift from, I want to say somebody important in India, and I don't remember who, ended up at I think it was the Bronx Zoo in the 1950s. Mohan was bred back to his granddaughter, I think, and all white tigers in the US are derived from Mohan and from that crossbreeding, and all of them are crossbred and inbred. To the point that they have these incredibly high mortality rates. Most of them do not survive very long, and all of them are cross-eyed, and they have problems with hip dysplasia and spinal deformities and all kinds of awful health issues. So
is that a thing with white animals, kind of generally? Like there's some mutation that white animals tend to...
white dogs are deaf. I don't know. I mean, it's not adaptive at all. So a white tiger in the wild is not, like, how are you going to sneak up on prey when you're all white? You stick out. You don't have no camouflage. So I think because zoos for a long time had white tigers, and they were like, oh, the rare white tiger. It's not a species. It's not a thing. It's a weird color morph. And some people do confuse them with Amur or Siberian tigers, which are not the same thing. And Siberian tigers are orange, like a normal tiger. So white tigers have no conservation meaning at all.
What's the link between polyamory and people who own big cats? Because Joe, for Molly's benefit, had 2 husbands at once. And also, he who shall not be named has many wives at once. So what's that about?
I don't know if he's married to any of them, but I wonder if it goes back to the whole thing about wanting to be different and unique.
Yeah.
Which is
Although, from what I know about my time on OkCupid, polyamory is not different or unique. In fact, you're hard pressed to find someone to date at the age of 45 who does not want to be a polyamorist.
Have you asked them if they have tigers, though?
Maybe
Maybe that might swing that needle for you one way or the other.
You think I would be more likely to date someone with a tiger or less?
I'm not sure. Tigers are pretty cool, which is why people want to have them. It's just really bad.
I don't think I would like that.
Cara, let's go. Cara, I got to ask you, during your online dating days, did you ever come across a profile photo featuring someone in the presence of a tiger?
I'm sure I did, but it was not as, I think it's like a thing, more of a thing now. I don't think it was as much of a thing back then. What I came across was mostly car selfies, people taking pictures of themselves in their car to prove that they have a car, I guess, which was an automatic no for me. And also bathroom selfies. Like, oh my God, I look so good in this harsh fluorescent lighting. I should take a picture of myself, which was not an automatic no, but like a mostly no for me. Yeah. And look at me, I ended up single, so it all worked out.
What about a bathroom selfie with a tiger?
I mean, most DC bathrooms aren't really big enough to accommodate a tiger. As I understand it, they're quite large.
Baby tiger. No,
we're getting a little off topic.
Meredith has taught me that I can never pet a baby tiger. I can never swim with dolphins. If I go to that place in the Caribbean with the pig, I'm not allowed to do that. There's all kinds of shit you can't do if you're like care about.
I don't think you can do that anyway. After the last hurricane season, the pigs are gone.
Oh,
really?
What?
Sorry.
What? After
the last hurricane season, well, I mean, I haven't checked recently to see what happened, but the pigs were gone after the hurricane.
What do you mean? They like left? They went to Cleveland?
Yeah. That's what I'm going to say to you, Pierce. Yes, they packed their little piggy bags and they said, this weather is atrocious. We need to get out of here. One of them went
to sea and eaten by the sharks that people feed for tourists.
Oh my, people are the worst.
Well, that's why I didn't really want to watch Tiger King when it first came out, because I thought it would just make me too sad.
I mean, it's really more about the personalities than it is about the animals. Like, unless you know what you're looking for, you won't even notice all the abuse.
Well, I was going to ask you that question. I mean, at the end of the day, this can go many different ways depending on who we're talking about. But like, the message or whatever the good that was supposed to come out of Tiger King was that squandered out of this like more tawdry, salacious tale of big characters and polyamory and murder and allegations? Like, did people miss the point at the end of the day of what the message should have been?
Yes, but at the same time, I don't think anyone would give a crap about tigers, or anyone would have watched this show at all had it not been for the sensationalism.
I don't know. We all watched Blackfish.
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, it seemed really depressing.
Yeah,
So-
because you animal welfare people. You have to depress us to make us care
I
about
know.
it.
I'm trying to, like, I have a whole list of stuff in front of me that I'm like, oh, I should talk about this, and I should talk about this, and then I started marking stuff off because I'm like, well, that's too depressing and that's horrifying. But no, I really do think that without the salaciousness, people wouldn't have paid attention. And now it's our job to step in and tell everyone about get your pen, the Big Cat Public Safety Act, which is the law that's going to make people like Joe illegal. It's going to put an end to all of this stuff. So
He's in jail, so he's already illegal.
well, yeah, but Jeff Lowe is still running his operation just fine. There's 40, at least 40 places that we know of in the US that are doing cup cutting.
Yeah, time out
Right.
for Molly. Molly, there midway through the season, another guy came onto the scene.
To
who
rescue
were
Joe,
like-
right? It was like a money thing.
Yeah, so Jeff Lowe actually, so he's a guy from North Carolina, and he had a liquidator store in North Carolina. Like, I just liquidate stuff. Oh, this is after he stopped working for Robbie Knievel as his, like, evil Knievel's son, Robbie. And after he got charged with illegally selling Prince's stuff, maybe.
For shame.
He owned this liquidator place in North Carolina where he wasn't getting enough business. So he's like, I'm gonna get tiger cubs in here. And the city was like, you can't do that. And he's like, sue me. And so they did. And they were like, you can't have these animals anymore.
So
we get rid
Joe
of them.
Exotic is in jail?
Oh yeah, Jeff Fryer.
Oh, minor detail.
Yeah,
They tried
because
to
he hired a contract killer who turned out to be an FBI agent. To cover
Okay,
up.
now I got it. Okay, now I remember. Okay.
He
was-
also
right.
shot 5 of his tigers in the face. So he got charged with that too.
Yeah, that's the other horrible thing we learned. Although I can't remember now if it's in the show or if I learned it from you, that they breed these tiger cubs. So they're cute and they attract people who want to come get their pictures taken with tiger cubs. This is true for a lot of these breeders. But then they kill them when they get big because they're very expensive to feed and difficult to maintain. And people aren't as interested in the big tigers as they are in the baby tigers. That's terrible.
Yeah. So actually his staff maintained that there were 12 tigers that he shot, but it's just that the Fish and Wildlife guys only found 5, so they could only charge him with 5. So, and if you look right now, if you go to the website for Skulls Unlimited and Google Lieliger or search for Lieliger, there is an ad up for a Lieliger skeleton on Skulls Unlimited that was like, it was bred in Oklahoma in 2003. Well, guess who was the only person in Oklahoma in 2003 breeding Lieligers?
What's a liger?
So a liger is a male lion and a female tiger making a baby makes a liger.
Okay.
And then if you breed that baby back to another lion, it's a lieliger.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Like
Gotcha.
that one right there. That's a lieliger.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we haven't even talked about the internet TV channel that Joe Exotic had and the live broadcasting that he did and the sketches that he did haranguing Carol Baskin, as well as his multiple attempts to break into the country music scene as a singer, with many fantastic videos as well.
And you know that was not really him singing, right?
That's such a bummer.
I don't want to wreck anything for you, but that was not him singing. That was someone else. Which I felt it was
I'm
really
shocked.
like, how did they not mention in the docuseries, like, oh, and by the way, here's the real singer who sang these things.
Yeah.
That's the thing not to
And
mention.
also, he may or may not have, depending on your interpretation of a certain episode, burned down his own television studio to destroy all the recordings which he learned after the fact because he signed a contract didn't actually belong to him. I think, if I'm remembering that correctly, or there was some issue with the producer that he hired to basically run his on-site TV studio, where a lot of the footage, I don't know how they wound up getting a lot of the footage for this. Maybe they ripped it off the internet, but yeah, I mean, I feel like we've literally just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, because also one of his husbands was playing with a gun and killed himself in his office. And that was also like a 30-second part of the thing. He had all these young, attractive
They have
husbands.
it on film.
One husband who didn't have any teeth or wear a shirt. Every time they showed him, he was like a toothless, shirtless person. Why didn't he have teeth? Why didn't he have a shirt?
Well, he didn't have teeth because of the meth problem, and he didn't have a shirt because Eric kept telling him to take it off.
Why? I didn't want to see that.
He thought it'd make better TV, and didn't it? Didn't it make better TV?
Do you think that Joe Exotic clicker trained the liger to ejaculate so he could impregnate the lion to make a liger?
Cara, you don't even understand. Jeff Lowe has been making all these allegations that Joe was having sex with those tigers.
What?
Oh, come on. No.
No, I'm out. Bye.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying that Jeff, who is notoriously unreliable, I mean, he did defraud a domestic abuse charity, but yes, he's been making these allegations.
Like, I don't want you to answer this question, but just for the good of the group, how would that even work? Like, you can't have sex with a tiger, it will kill you. I mean,
we're gonna have to leave it at that.
I just don't.
Nope.
I didn't think I could be shocked anymore by things about that, but that's really
well. And Jeff has also online. He has posted pictures of stuffed animals with holes in strategic places of the stuffed animals, along with lingerie, and he maintains that these are Joe's things.
I don't know. I will say this. I found a lot of what I saw in the documentary. I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I said, I found it a bit unsavory.
What?
I found it in poor taste. I don't know exactly what went on or when it went on or who was whatever, but I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. And I didn't watch the follow-up interview with Joel McHale.
No, I didn't either.
Terrible. I love Joel McHale, and I was so disappointed in that. It made me sad.
Yeah.
But I will say I was really excited. I was going to tell you guys all about that on Facebook. There's a group called the Joe Exotic Jeff Lowe Watchdog Group, which was started many years ago by this guy named Jeff Johnson, who maintains that Joe burned down his house, or maybe that Jeff burned down his house. I'm not really clear which one of them burned down his house, but it was never proven. But that Facebook group, Jeff just discontinued it yesterday. He was like, I'm canceling this whole group. But it has like screen grabs from Jeff's personal Facebook page. It has like all this stuff going back years of like all these allegations and all this stuff. And like, and it's was populated by people who worked at the zoo who were like, oh yeah, he totally killed 12 tigers. And Eric Cowie was the one who wheeled them out to the whatever. Yeah.
The tiger pile.
It's all gone now. It's all gone.
Ultimately, all this innuendo and whatever, these salacious tales again, it makes for good TV.
Yeah.
But like, what should we take away from personalities aside? Like, what is the thing that, from you, coming from your position and your degree of expertise, like, what should we be taking away from all this? Or what is the lessons learned here? Or what is the drum you need to beat once again so loudly that everybody hears it with respect to this?
It's what I tell Cara all the time. Don't hug wild animals. Don't touch baby tigers. Like all these places that breed tigers so that you can pay to play with a tiger cub, none of them are doing conservation work. None of them are doing anything that's good for those animals. The only way that tiger cub petting works is if you have a constant supply of baby animals, and you can only use them until they're about 8 weeks old by law. And then you have to stop using them. So these are animals that are commercially viable for 2 months of their life, and then they're surplus. And if tigers live for 20 years and you've got to breed however many it takes each year, so you always have some available legally for breeding, then you should have 200 to 300 tigers on your property. And none of these guys do. So what are they doing with them? They're selling them. So sometimes they go to magicians, and the magicians use them until they're a little bit too old for that, because you've never seen a magician except for Siegfried and Roy, and you saw how that ended with an adult tiger. Then they give them back to be used for breeding, and they do something called speed breeding, which is really bad and horrible. And then they warehouse them, or they sell them off to private individuals to keep as pets, which is how people like this guy in Ohio ended up with 18 tigers. And none of it's good for anybody. And these cats, the way they keep them, like, if you're going to use one tiger all day long for tourists to play with, it doesn't get to sleep. And you want everyone to get their money's worth, so that cat has to be hungry all day. And the way you do that is you water down the formula. So they're always hungry, they're always tired. And a lot of them end up getting something called metabolic bone disease because they don't get enough calcium. So their bones break just under the weight of their own body. I have x-rays of a cat that we helped rescue in 2018 from a place that Jeff Lowe almost bought. So when he was shopping around for a zoo to buy, after North Carolina told him he couldn't have his own, he went shopping and he almost bought this place in Colorado. And when the people who did buy it went in, they found these 2 tiger cubs that had just aged out of the cub petting, and they had broken legs and pelvises, and they were being passed around all day for cub petting. And it's because they weren't properly fed. I mean, it's just, they'll tell you all kinds of lies and stories about how well they treat the animals and how they're doing conservation work, but it's not true. So don't pet tigers. And
okay,
again,
can I swim with dolphins?
Big Cat Public Safety Act. Tell your person, your representative, to vote for it. It's a bill that we're now getting more attention for than we ever have before. And it stands a pretty decent chance of passing. It has bipartisan support. So yes, no, you can't swim with dolphins either, Cara.
Okay, so we're clear. We're not allowed to cuddle the tigers or swim with anybody or whatever. But theoretically, if you were going to own an exotic animal, which you should not do, and we don't recommend it, and you ought not to, but like, which one would you want?
I'm not answering that.
Really?
What? I mean, I guess I'd want my own pet elephant. I keep it out on my little patio. It'd be fine, right?
Okay, Pierce?
I would want a whale.
That's not practical. She was a whale.
Not a practical question.
Molly?
A capybara.
Ooh.
I would like to have a capybara ranch.
Are those rodents?
They are the world's largest rodent. They live in South America. They
You guys are terrible.
they're like
at this
giant guinea pigs, and but they really like to poop in water. They're not clean. They're very cute though. They're very cute.
I think I saw one when I was in Panama back over in the holidays.
Yeah, South American Catholics are allowed to eat them on Fridays because they were declared fish.
Because what?
Yeah, the Catholic Church said you could eat them on Fridays because they live in water.
Fish on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Cara, what animal would you have that you're not supposed to?
A what?
A peacock.
If you have a bird, I'm saying you're going to be one of those bird keepers. Just saying.
No, because you said they're crazy, and I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm crazy, but not like that. Speaking of, our last question is, Kit Bartels wants to know who the craziest group of animal people are. She thinks what I think, that it must be the chimp owners.
Oh, people who keep primates. I don't deal with them. Thank God. I don't know. They're all crazy in their own special way. Like the people who keep venomous snakes. I feel like that's pretty crazy. But yeah, the primate, if you're keeping an animal that wants to eat your face and your junk, I feel like that's problematic. So the primate people have some weird stuff going on.
There's a great book about, what is this book called? It's about this place in Alabama where they handle snakes. It's like a whole, investigative report about this church where they handle snakes for Jesus or something. It was really good.
They die a lot
Yeah, they
because
die
they
a
won't
lot.
get treated if they get bitten because it's a
They have
trap.
stubby hands too from the bites. You know,
They have what?
I'm gonna catch some. They have stubby hands from all the bites. From
Ew.
snake bites. Yeah. You know, I find dog owners to be pretty much troublesome as well, but probably
What?
gonna catch some flack for that. Molly, great. Can you parrot back everything that you've heard about Tiger King now?
Big Cat Safety Act. Wait, what is it called? That
Big
is
Cat
okay.
Public Safety Act. Yeah.
Big Cat Public Safety Act, polyamory, big cats, Venn diagram, Oklahoma, Florida, Carol Baskin, actually good.
Mhm.
And he's in jail and did not sing his own music.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
The book is called Salvation on Sand Mountain. It was a National Book Award finalist in 1995, and it's very, very good. And I'd also like to tell you, I couldn't work this in earlier, but my daughter is now being raised by TikTok. Everybody know what TikTok is?
Chinese spy software.
Yes, with music. And there's a very, very popular TikTok about Carol Baskin that she sings all the time, even though she has never seen Tiger King and doesn't know about it. And I try to rep for you, Meredith. I'm like, Carol Baskin is innocent. She's actually a very important conservationist. But in the song, it's Carol Baskin killed her husband, whacked him. She sings it constantly.
It's a really catchy song.
It is.
It's horribly wrong, but it is catchy.
Yeah.
All the best ones are.
Much like Tiger King, it's bad for us, but we liked it, like cotton candy.
I just learned
I love
yesterday
cotton
that
candy.
that Eric might be making another episode,
Just
and maybe about Siegfried and Roy.
Just stop. Everyone stop. Just stop. We don't need this. We don't want this. We've been there. We've done that. Just enjoy. Go do like Molly. Set up your night vision camera. Watch the critters come through and leave them alone. We don't need to know their backstory. I don't need to know what the squirrel and the chipmunk were talking about or doing after
I
hours.
will probably not ever charge admission to see the chipmunks in my yard, probably.
Don't let people touch them. That's all I ask.
I will probably not let people touch them unless I can get a lot of money. Right? That's what I learned. No. Oh, don't touch them. Okay. No one's gonna touch my chippies.
That's the thing.
No one's gonna touch my chippies.
My aunt has a pet squirrel that she saved when it was a baby, and now it comes and eats peanuts every day. But she doesn't touch it anymore.
Does it live in her house?
No, it did when it was teeny tiny, but as soon as it was able to be out in the world.
It got its own apartment.
She also did that for a raccoon.
Community college.
Either of
Got its own
those.
place.
No, thank you.
It's working at a Starbucks. Well, it was working at a Starbucks. It got furloughed.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're coming to the end. This has been fantastic. Now's your chance. I mean, Meredith, I know you. Do you want to plug? You want to encourage, call people to action? Do you want to tell them to do stuff? Visit a website, donate money. What is it that people should be doing? And don't worry, Molly, we'll get to you too.
Really, Big Cat Public Safety Act. Just Google it. Any website that comes up that has a link that you can talk to your representative to send a letter, do it. Do it.
Cool.
In fact, go to Big Cat Rescue's website and do it from there.
That's
Carol
Carol
Baskin.
Baskin.
Yeah.
Molly, what legislation are you supporting, or what other
No.
improv or appearances do you have coming up that you want to plug?
I don't think I have any. I have a show. I don't have another show until June. Washington Improv Theater, ICDC, June 12th. In the meantime, WIT has many fun classes online. If you want to check out some fun improv classes online. That's it.
What is the address again? witdc.org?
witdc.org.
Right. Cool. I have, bear with me, let's see, technology. We have got Cara, you can talk, and I'm going to try and pull up this screen for everybody.
Pierce and I we've been a little bit hesitant to do a live Perfect Liars Club because we wanted to make sure it was going to be perfect and amazing. And now we've been doing this show, and I did a live storytelling show, and we've been talking to other producers, and we're ready to go with Perfect Liars Club in June 3rd. It's going to be totally live. We have an awesome lineup of storytellers. We have Debbie Vishnevsky, Tori Ball, Noop Meda, and Mike Kane. So it's really a superstar lineup. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do the interrogation, kind of like the YouTube chat that we're doing now. We're super excited about it. It's pay what you can. And we really hope that a whole bunch of you come and talk about it. Come and watch it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, this is the opportunity for letting your friends in the Best Kept Secret in Washington, D.C., Perfect Liars Club. They don't have to be in Washington now, obviously, to come to a show. It's going to be completely live, different from the home edition where you watch videos and submitted questions in advance. This is like our live show, except it's live streamed. So yeah, RSVP, so you get the top secret link to the show. And if you can pay what you can, every little bit helps defray the costs of running this top-notch organization, otherwise known as Perfect Liars Club, DC.
And also my bird feed.
Well, thanks to our guests, Molly and Meredith, you guys are fantastic. We got past that whole YouTube outage. Not only did we survive the pandemic, so far we survived the great YouTube outage of March, May, whatever. Where are we?
May.
What month is it?
It's May.
May. Thanks everybody who watched at home. Thanks for the questions.
Come back next week.
When our guest will be Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Oh my God.
It's like book TV.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
I'm there.
And animal expert.
Jack Hanna.
Jack Hanna, that's right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody.
Good night.
Wash your hands.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Ma